For more on this, we now have with us Elliot Burrell, former director at Israel's National Security Council, joining us on this bulletin live from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I want to begin by asking you, at a time when there's growing international pressure as well as pressure from within to rein in the operations in the region and also de-escalate tensions in West Asia, do you think Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would be willing to go ahead with a response to Iran's attacks and go ahead alone, in fact, because the United States has said that the fact that the attack was largely thwarted, that was response enough?
Well, what we're hearing is that all options for retaliation are currently being considered and are on the table. Needless to say, it would be a more complicated situation because of the message from the United States, but also because of the question of legitimacy and support from within, and particularly because the main goal for the continuation of hostilities and a war effort on the Israeli side are seen in the public, I think, would be the return of the hostages. And it's unclear how at this time such an action would promote that rather than divert resources. Having said that, is it also quite logical that the War Cabinet is considering retaliation? Because as you all saw on April 14th in the early morning hours, Israel was comprehensively attacked in a way that no country has ever been attacked before. And there's a question here of sovereignty and of what deterrence and retaliation look like. So obviously a lot of issues to consider.
Right.
Personally, I would stress that I think the War Cabinet is quite aware of the fact that the Iranian attack had failed miserably, it's true, and that this form of effective defense that Israel and its supporters have put up effectively amounts to deterrence by denial. Iran was not able to achieve its goals, and I think all of its proxies and everybody who was watching understands that effective defense is deterrence as well. So we have an issue here where I think Israel should very, very carefully craft what its response should be, considering its interests.
Right, absolutely. In fact, I was just going to come to this next, as you said as well. That is the wide consensus on this, that the fact that it was largely thwarted was a response enough. You spoke about resources as well, and that was my next question. Do you think if Israel does go ahead with a retaliatory strike or does have a plan for retaliation, it can go ahead and sustain that fight alone with Iran?
Well, let me be clear. Retaliation can take various forms. Israel has no shortage of means, ranging from cyber through kinetic through any other means. And also Iran provides for a very target-rich environment. It's not just necessarily striking at Iran itself. It has so many assets throughout the region, very high-value assets, such as the general who was taken out supposedly by Israel in Damascus. He's not the only one. I mean, the Iranian attempts to base their power, both in Syria and Lebanon and Yemen, throughout the region, does supply a very wide range of high-value targets. So what we have here is a very rich menu of retaliation options. Some of them, would not necessarily carry out a huge conflict or deterioration, but the truth is that you never know in war what will cause escalation. I don't think Israel particularly wants to go it alone, but Israel can do it. It can't take the fight on by itself. The question is always what interests are being served. And I go back to the point where building deterrence is not something that is done in one strike or a point of retaliation. The kind of demonstration of Israeli defense capabilities that the world has never seen before, everybody knew we had them, but now we've demonstrated how effective they are, actually constitutes a very strong form of deterrence as well. So according to our interests, nothing else.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us on WION World as One with your insights on this.
Thank you.
For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.